Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. You know, abuse can do strange things to people, particularly when that abuse has gone on for a long time unanswered. Some people grow to like being kicked around, while the vast majority still resent it. Some people say enough when they're being abused, and others start to ask, "Thank you, massa, may I please have another?" This is especially true when it comes to black people's history in this country. We're told that black people, who are the first ones to be accepted into this or that school or this or that industry or whatever, had to put up with tons of anti-black racism. And that these people are trailblazers. Well, a trailblazer is supposed to make headway towards a goal. But the only trailblazers the white media mentions are the ones who merely survived the racial onslaught they were subjected to. Those who attack them are never punished. The status quo is never changed. But we've been conditioned through the so-called documentaries and history books to think of these as victories. Well, a victory means the person who won is supposed to have something to show for it. Also, a trailblazer is supposed to lead the way for others. It's in the name. But how many of these famous firsts led to more black people getting into anything? The one Negro at a time rule applies in all arenas of this society, not just Hollywood. In last night's Sunday address, we talked about Negroes who have swallowed the white media line that we are the designated sufferers. We're the ones who are supposed to take it on the chin no matter what, and like it. We're the ones who are supposed to suffer. That's our societal role. That the abuse that we've had heaped on us, especially before the 1960s, it's some kind of virtue. A lot of us haven't learned when somebody is mocking us, that we shouldn't be honored to be anyone's punching bag. The white media propaganda makes this into a perverted kind of bragging rights, but that's what happens when you have no power in society. And by the way, I'm not talking about the people who were simply the first ones in the door. The type who I'm talking about are the ones who basically take pride in having turned the other cheek to the very people that they should have been slapping in the face, because they want a white media pat on the back. And since the white media has spent 3 generations now using their media to push the narrative that the people who took all this abuse from white power are deserving of special praise, there's a lot of black folks who have now taken that narrative on as their identity. The white media and even a few politicians give them a pat on the back, or rather a pat on the head, and they feel like they're accepted now, they're in. All the abuse and degradation was for something after all. Their legacy, as they see it, that's their legacy. That's what they're going to be remembered for. And truth be told, that's what motivates a whole lot of them to go ahead and take that abuse with a smile and then afterwards talk as if they're somehow on the inside looking out. Because as far as they're concerned, well, now I'm going to be remembered for this. This good white media, they're going to remember me for this. I spilled blood in Selma, etc. The white media has gone into phony hysterics about Kyrie Irving and what he watches on Amazon, and they've given practically no attention to Nick Fuentes, a bona fide Holocaust denier, the real thing, by the way, who has members of Congress coming to his so-called convention. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene, among others. Now, folks like Judy Gold put on fake indignation as to how many people listen to Kanye's music, but she has nothing to say about sitting members of Congress speaking at events hosted by open, blatant, notorious antisemites. So apparently the measure of whether or not an anti-Semite is a threat to the Jewish community is whether or not they're in the top 40. Not whether they tried to overthrow the government or they're in a position where they're writing laws. Apparently that's not what constitutes a threat to the Jewish community as the white media sees it. When real anti-Semitism hits, the white media tries to find some black connection to it. And if they can't find a black person to pin it on, then they downplay it. So last week, Trump had a few guests over at Mar-a-Lago, and this time it wasn't the FBI. It was Kanye West, Milo Yiannopoulos, and Nick Fuentes. Of course, the white media made the biggest deal about Kanye West, and they made no issue whatsoever out of the fact that Milo Yiannopoulos claims to be Jewish, and yet here he was at Mar-a-Lago at the exact same time as Nick Fuentes, one of the most notorious anti-Semites alive, who has been bumping elbows with insurrectionists like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And this is not the first time that Milo's hung out with Nick Fuentes. He knows exactly who this guy is and what he's done. But apparently the white media doesn't know or doesn't care. And there's no big deal made about that. We're always letting people back us into a corner like this, sticking labels on us, and then we act like whipped dogs and just let them get away with it. First of all, we have to stop letting anyone else claim that we are comparable to anyone else. They do that as a means of dismissing our suffering and then giving tangibles to everyone but us. They equate what we've been through for 500 years to the minor inconveniences that other groups may have had for a few years, no matter where it happened or who did it. That way they can push the lie that black people's suffering has been no greater and hence is no more important than anyone else's, and then they give reparations to everybody but us. They don't tell these other groups, well, your suffering is no worse than what happened to black people, so we got to make sure black folks get reparations and you guys just got to wait. They don't do that with those other groups. White power believes in having it both ways. That's a crucial part of making sure that they can always play the game of heads we win, tails you lose. And that goes with punishments too. When it comes time to talk about black people, well, the punishment always has to be higher than everyone else. It's got to be greater than everyone else. It's got to be more severe than everyone else. Black people have absolutely no power, but the white media pushes the lie that we are as racist as anyone else when we're not racist at all, because we have never had the power nor the desire to be. And then after putting forward the lie that black people are anti-Semitic or homophobic or whatever, when we talk about how we've been harmed and mistreated, it's supposed to be seen as black people getting what we deserve. It's a narrative meant to justify anti-black racism. That's the reason why you don't ever let anybody play that lie of we're all a little bit racist. No, the racists are over there. Over here in black society, we're not racist at all. Full stop. All those stories last year talking about Stop Asian Hate, no matter how many white supremacists were caught committing crimes against the Asian community, the white media only seemed interested about calling out black people specifically for events that in many cases weren't even racial. But the white media didn't say a word about, hey, Asian business owners have been caught doing this, or Asian residents have been caught committing these acts of racism. They didn't try to give a low-key justification of crimes against Asians. They only do that with us. John Henrik Clarke talked about this, how America wants to make sure that black folks are constantly in a protracted state of begging for mercy, begging for forgiveness, begging your pardon. It's racialized psyops is what it is. And on a side note, I don't fault Kyrie Irving at all for giving the apology that he offered because the point was made. Who I fault, however, are the NBA players for not giving a forceful response to what happened. At this late date, we're still trying to win some popularity contest. We haven't figured out yet that the only time people are willing to pretend that they can stand us is when we're down on our knees or down and out. But when we stand up for ourselves, we draw fire. But that's fine, though, because that's the only time we've ever had our way. There's nothing noble about long suffering. There's nothing valiant about proving how long you can take abuse without any sort of gain or reward or accomplishment or achievement. We keep trying to see how we can stop the attacks, but still be friends with the people attacking us. We don't have to be the designated punching bags. But that means we have to stop going along with narratives whose subtext is that we're the bad guys, or at the very least, we're no better than the bad guys. We must say that we are better, no matter who doesn't like it. The white media will trot out the Stephen Smiths and other professional butt kissers to say otherwise, but they don't have any legitimacy. They're comfort food for racists, and everyone can see it. Well, I don't know about you, but it's way past time that we untied ourselves from the whipping post and snatch the whip out of the enemy's hand. And no, we're not going to throw the whip away. We're going to put the enemy on the business end of it. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Rose Arnold, Rahman Muhammad, Kawi Harvard, Unknown, and Roxanne Allen. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.